Now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. Across the web, on Fight Now TV, and on radio stations around the world. It's the only daily boxing talk radio show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C studio in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Colliger, and it's time for Talking Boxing with Billy C. Good morning, good evening. Whenever you listen, I hope you're doing all right. The show's being brought to you in part by Cats Nationwide Luxury Transportation Service. You're looking for a limo, someplace in the United States or even Canada, and you want a hottie driving you around, give Cat a call, 202-351-7496. That's 202-351-7496. Tell her Billy C sent you. But remember, she's my girl. The show is also being brought to you in part by Campanaro Tomkovich. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep my ass out of trouble. That is Campanaro Tomkovich. Give them a call today, 845-221-4099. That's 845-221-4099. The show is also being brought to you in part by my friends down at the Halftime Bar and Grill, Route 9, South Glens Falls. If you like cool people to hang with, drink specials all the time, live entertainment, and fantastic food, then you're going to love the Halftime Bar and Grill. Give them a call for directions or reservations, 518-792-4869, 518-792-4869. And, of course, the show is being brought to you in part by Ringside.com for all your boxing equipment needs. If you haven't been to Ringside.com in a while, check it out. A lot of new product lines. The pricing has been revamped. Great stuff on Ringside.com. Make sure you mention Billy C. Demand a Billy C discount. And don't forget, for all of you gym owners or trainers or anyone else who buys boxing equipment in bulk, you can get even a bigger and a better discount if you take the time to drop me an email. Now, remember my email. You know, I say this about 100,000 times during the show, and yet people still make the mistake. It's Billy at Talkin, TALKIN, and then boxing, BOXING.com. So it's Talkin' Boxing. In the word talking, you don't have the G. In the word boxing, you do have the G. So, come on, man. Come on. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Anyway, here's the thing. Hey, J-Man is in the chat room. What's up, man? Yesterday, we had a power outage here in the studio, smack in the middle of a fantastic show, of course. Now, here's the problem. The power outage destroyed some of our equipment, which, make the long and the short of the story, we lost the show forever. The only people that got to see it were the people that were watching or listening to the show live, and it was a great show while it lasted. Now, we are trying to recover a section of the show that happened to have been backed up on Fight Now on the television channel, and I'm working to have that posted sometime today. Now, what that is it's only a half hour of the show, but it was a segment with Dax Khan, and we were talking about the updated part of his Bryant Pappas story. So look for that up on the YouTube channel, and also for the replay on LDL TV. Another thing that we were able to retain because we did get some power partially yesterday. We were able to do the heavyweight spotlight, which is already posted, but we weren't able to broadcast it. But it's posted right now under the heavyweight spotlight area on BillyCBoxing.com. I strongly recommend that you check that one out. Tony Treem and I talked about Elmer Ray, an all but forgotten fighter who, in addition to what we discussed, we actually have some other information about him, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Now, here's what's going on. Yesterday, I'm sorry. Well, I'm responding to Jay. He says, why wasn't yesterday's show on the podcast? Because I just told you we experienced a power outage. We had an ice storm yesterday. And right now, we're experiencing tornado-type winds out there, so I wouldn't be surprised if we lose it again today. This is why we're moving out to Vegas to do the show out there. I'm just, I just can't stand it when, little things like this happen. And we work really hard to put the show together and to get it out there every single day. So it's very frustrating, especially for the peanuts that we do it for. One thing I want to talk about real quick is the emails that we went through yesterday. Here's the thing. Hawk Mustang and EQX and Gaming Stop Central and Biggerback and even my main man, Given Quality, all were kind of bashing me yesterday about the bottom line is I'm not going to get into all these emails again, all right, because it took too long. And we got Marty Mulcahy coming up in a little bit. I got a lot of boxing news to talk about. I got my breakdowns and predictions of the fights that are on the Billy C Challenge this week. Also, next week, I want to remind everybody, in addition to our normal, criminals that we have on this show, Scotty and I are going to talk about the Greatest Fight Series, so we'll keep you posted on that. You can look on the website for the most recent, the latest, the latest updates on what we're going to talk about and everything else. It's usually posted by the middle of the weekend. But I will tell you this, undefeated contender waiting for a title shot, Randy Caballero, he'll be joining us next week. So we'll be looking forward to forward to it yesterday. J-Man, yes, there was a show, but you had to be here live to catch it or watch it on Fight Now TV because we experienced a power outage, and we are trying to get some copies of different parts of that show so that we can get it up there for you. Anyway, let's get to these emails real quick. Like I said, Hawk and EQX and Gaming Stop Central, Pickerback, and Given Quality all were kind of bashing me yesterday. Here's the gist of the issue. They feel, and probably a lot of you guys feel, that the way they called it is an old-timer nut hugger, is what they referred to me as. The bottom line is, they feel, in a nutshell, that I give too much credit to the old fighters and not enough credit to the new fighters, that I, claim that the old fighters are so much better than the new fighters, and I should, be showing a little more, respect or giving more credit to the new fighters. Here's my response. My response is, you got me all wrong, man. You got me all wrong. My point about, and the name that came up most in all these emails was Jack Dempsey, and the comparison that we had with Jack Dempsey and the Klitschko brothers. And I read down all of our rankings and who I thought were quality fighters, and there's lots of them from every division, and it's too bad you missed it all, and I just don't have the time to do it today, but I like many, many fighters of today, and I'm huge fans of a lot of them. And it's not that I always think that the old-time fighters were better. Here's or greater. Here's the thing. The rule that we've all evolved into that we follow is that you can only base a fighter and his whole complete career when it's over on the opponents he faced that were available during his career. All right, we all agree on that. It's become the unwritten rule when you're talking about fighters. Everybody likes to have these dream matchups. Oh, Jack Dempsey against Klitschko, blah, blah, blah. All right, it's not going to happen. Nobody has a time machine yet. So it's not going to happen. But like Lennox Lewis and the Klitschko's when they retire, and of course Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao and all these guys, they're going to be in the Hall of Fame. They're going to be considered great. They're going to be considered, from the younger fans that are watching now, I say younger, 35 and younger, you're going to be remembering those days 20 years from now, like I remember the 80s, 25 years ago. So the bottom line is this. Yes, the fighters of today are extremely talented athletes. There's no question about it. But overall, the only time when you have to look at boxing in terms of the sport and the popularity of it and the amount of fighters that were involved and the level of opposition and the frequency in which they fought, that's the only time when you start talking about coulda, woulda, shoulda, that's when that has to be brought into play. And there's no question, even for the most diehard modern boxing fan that loves all these fighters and thinks that Floyd is the greatest and all this stuff, all right? Even for the most diehard, you can't deny that back in the day, the overall complexion of the boxing sport, the sport of boxing, consisted of much better and tougher guys. It just, they fought each other more frequently and everything else, and it ended up being, they were just better, against each other. It's not fair to take an athlete in any sport, and I use this example all the time. Even if you use baseball or football, American football, and you take a star of yesteryear, even not so far away, even a Joe Montana, who was a star, 20 years ago. Even put him in today's, mix with the athletes that are playing the sport today, and he's going to have a hard time. He's going to struggle. So yes, the athletes of today and the boxers of today are all quality when we're talking about the upper echelon ones. But if you took them back and put them in that time, I'm not so sure how they would do, because I just don't. I just don't. Now, keep in mind that not all of them. There are certain fighters, and the thing about what they retain, what they lose, and everything else. The Klitschko's, for example, would retain their size. So we take a guy like a Klitschko, when we move him back into a Jack Dempsey, that's the issue. Does a Jack Dempsey who's 200 pounds, soaking wet, not even 180 pounds, who's 6 foot tall, 6'1", does he fare against Klitschko? Based on the dominance that the Klitschko brothers have today, are you trying to tell me that they would have dominated in the same era of, let's say, a Jack Dempsey or a Rocky Marciano or even a Muhammad Ali? And that's where I disagree with a lot of younger fans. I'm not knocking the current fighters. I'm not knocking their talent. I enjoy watching them. I think the Klitschko's have become very proficient at using their size as an advantage and all that stuff. So, don't think I'm always just putting all the credit on the old guys, and I'm not putting any credit on the young guys. It's only when we start talking about these discussions. And if you recall, if you saw the Tony Treem Changed My Mind episode that we did a couple of weeks ago, you would see that I actually was the guy that was going in there saying, the Klitschko's and the Lennox Lewis's may have been too big for the Jack Dempseys and the Rocky Marcianos and all of that stuff. And Tony was able to change my mind about that again, because I had originally thought the opposite. So that's it in a nutshell. All right. The bottom line is I respect all the new fighters and everything else. The one thing that I did talk about yesterday, and by the way, I'm not taking a break here. I'm just going to take it at the top of the hour. One thing I did talk about yesterday was about the sweet science. There is something that seems to be a popular issue with a lot of the younger fans, and that issue is they always throw Jack Johnson in my face. They say, "Well, Billy C, you say that Jack Johnson was a great fighter and all of this stuff. We've watched the video. We just don't see it. The guy was poor. He didn't show anything. He was slow. He was this. He was that." And, what I try to explain to them, and if you read some of the write-ups about him, some of the negative stuff, I mean, you got to remember that it was all prejudice-based and everything else. But, Jack Johnson is a great example, especially for these fans like Given Quality, who's such a big Floyd Mayweather fan and stuff, and always say, well, Floyd, if you want to see, two guys like Bam Bam Rios and Mike Alvarado, guys like Given Quality say, that's just, two guys going at it. That's not the display of the sweet science, which, is to hit and not get hit, blah, blah, blah. Well, I agree with that. I just don't think that the excitement factor is with those guys. Floyd Mayweather is not an exciting factor. Exciting fighter. I don't care if you love the sweet science. He's just not exciting. If you're looking at it oh wow, look at that. Oh, did you see that feint? Oh yeah. Did you see the way he punches? Oh yeah. But once in a blue moon. To me, it's not exciting. Is it effective? Yes. Is it the sweet science? Yes. But here's the connection with Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson was actually a pioneer of sorts in what we call the sweet science today. Remember, they used to refer to bare knuckle boxing as the sweet science, and I'm sure that all of you, if we had video of the bare knuckle era, and when my book comes out, you'll get some. I describe these fights round by round, virtually punch by punch, whatever was available in the history that's been saved, and that was considered the sweet science. It was like a street fight. It was like a schoolyard fight, and nothing to resemble what we call the sweet science today. And if you want to look at a guy that would be the ambassador of the definition of the sweet science, of course you would put a guy like Floyd Mayweather, under that definition. But if you look back and see the style that Jack Johnson fought, it was the beginning of the evolution of what we call the sweet science today. He set up punches. He used a jab to set up his power. He was able to avoid defensively. He was able to avoid a lot of punches. He had great defensive ability with his hands to deflect punches. Was it exciting by today's standards? Probably not. But he's got to get credit. Another guy we talked about yesterday that doesn't get the credit, that's virtually forgotten, is a guy like Benny Leonard. This was a guy that. We all talk about Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali, and all these great fighters that emulated Sugar Ray Robinson. All right, Sugar Ray Robinson. What did you think he invented? All of the slick moves and all of that stuff? No, go. Learn about Benny Leonard. This was a guy that was way before a guy like Sugar Ray Robinson. So I get it. I understand, and I give all the fighters of today oodles of credit, and I'm critical because we get to watch it and we talk about it, but if when push comes to shove, I'm a boxing person, I'm a boxing fan first, so I whether I'm happy with a result or whether I'm happy with a performance or anything, that's neither here nor there. I love the sport. Between NFL football and boxing, to me, there's no better sport. So that's the bottom line. So, I'm not going to get into every one of these emails and stuff. That's why you should tune in live for this. But I am going to say some stuff about El Murray. Now, if you go and look up on the heavyweight spotlight section of BillyCBoxing.com, or if you go to the YouTube page or whatever, you'll see you'll be able to listen and watch the El Murray spotlight that Tony Treem and I did. Now, there's been an update because thanks to my man Henry Haskip, he sent me some information on El Murray that neither Tony or myself knew, and a couple of things were pretty interesting. One thing we did touch on, but not as extensive as I know now. El Murray. Now, first of all, El Murray was a really hard guy to do because there's virtually no information on him. The record keeping was terrible, and this guy wasn't born in 1900. He fought in the 30s and the 40s, mid 30s all the way through the late 40s. During the Joe Louis era and the beginning of the Rocky Marciano eras and all that stuff. So you would think that there would be some records on this guy, like what happened to him. What did he do for a living and all this stuff? And a lot of stuff is starting to come out. People are emailing Tony. People are emailing me. But Henry sent me some interesting stuff. Number one, to Joe Louis, they wanted to do some sparring, El Murray and Joe Louis, and Joe Louis didn't want any part of it. He said that El Murray was such a hard puncher that he felt that he didn't know what the difference between a real fight to take somebody's head off or an exhibition is, and therefore, didn't want to do it. Now, they eventually did spar some exhibitions later on, but Joe Louis was pretty apprehensive about that. So, another thing that I never read anywhere, and my man Henry sent me some clips, some news reports. This guy must have access to some of these papers, and that's great stuff. I got to hook him up with Alex. But anyway, he was an alligator wrestler. El Murray was like, they referred to him as a former alligator wrestler. Now we did know that he fought somewhat like 60 battle royales before he even turned pro. So there's just so much stuff about this guy. And Tony and I have really taken on a personal interest in him, and we're trying to learn more about it. So anyway, let's get into some news, because there's a lot of stuff, and Marty Mulcahy is going to be coming on in a few minutes, and Marty and I like to ramble on. So now, the other day, we did talk about this yesterday, but Daniel Geale improved to 29 wins and a loss with 15 knockouts when he beat Anthony Mundine. Listen, I'm not going to give Anthony Mundine the time of day, but this guy is the biggest idiot I have ever. Forget about the fact that he was saying that the United States deserved what we got on 9/11, and that's why we boycott him. But even after, just to show you what an a-hole he is, after the fight, which everybody in attendance and every reporter and almost anybody that watched it felt that everything was cool, that it was a dominating fight by Daniel Geale, and that the scorecards were 100% accurate, where 2 out of 3 judges scored it 117-111, and the third had it 116-112. And Mundine, he says he was ripped off. We don't need guys like this. La 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 la. I mean, you know what? Somebody tape a bomb to him and set him off in an airport. I don't know. And not an airport around here. I'm talking about one of their airports. Send him back. Send him back to wherever he came from. We don't need him. So anyway, with the rest of the card, Kimbo Slice improved to 7-0 with 6 knockouts. It's funny to read. I didn't see the fight. I didn't see it, but it's funny to read some of the accounts of it, where they said it was an exciting fight. He's adding life to the heavyweight division, blah 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 blah. And then I read, I believe it was Kevin Ioli's report, and he said this guy is a joke. This guy, got stunned by his opponent, Shane Tilliard. He said that he doesn't resemble anything close to a boxer, but nonetheless he improved to 7-0. He knocked out Shane Tilliard with a body shot at 2 minutes and 9 seconds of the second round. Also on that card, Daniel Amanian improved to 27-5 with a draw when he won a 10-round decision over David Alua. I need reading glasses is what I need, man, because my eyesight is like gone overnight, it seems. But Alua was undefeated going into the fight. He's now 8-1 with 5 knockouts. Also ranked in the top 12 or so of most of the major sanctioning bodies, Joel Bruckner. Now, I remember one of our listeners sent me a whole press kit or something on this kid, and I started watching him. Quality fighter. Well, he showed it again the other night. 25-0 now with 14 knockouts when he won a unanimous decision over Ivan Hernandez, who drops to 26-7 with a draw. 8-round fight, 80-72, 79-73, 78-75, all in favor of Bruckner, who incidentally sustained a cut over his right eye from a headbutt that was a pretty serious bleed and looked like a stuck pig. Also on that card, former world middleweight title challenger Jamie Pittman. He scored a one-sided 8-round decision over Zach Awad. to improve to 22-3 with 8 knockouts. Awa drops to 18-3 with 7 knockouts and a draw. Lauren Eagle, female fighter in the lightweight division, improved to 6 wins, 3 losses, and a draw when she beat Nadine Brown. And Nadine Brown drops to 2-3-1 now in their 8-round fight. And finally, light heavyweight Steve Lovett remained undefeated, now 6-0 with 5 knockouts when he went the distance, actually for the first time, against Jeremy Allen in a 6-rounder. Allen drops to 8 wins, 11 losses, and 3 draws. And by the way, 3 of his wins coming by knockout. It was announced yesterday. Now, you remember last week when we talked about the offer that Golden Boy made to, actually, was it last week or was it this? It might have been Monday. Golden Boy made a $3 million offer to Top Rank to fight Abner Mares to fight Nonito Donaire, and they claim that it was a no strings attached, cut and dry offer, and no one in that division had ever made that much money. That's one side, by the way, and we didn't hear anything since until yesterday. Late yesterday, Abner Mares says that he's moving up in weight class because they got a refusal from Top Rank. They said that not only did they make the offer, but they just sent back a notice saying we're not interested. And even Richard Schaefer was like, they didn't even offer us a counteroffer. They didn't do anything. Maris was quoted as saying the ball was thrown to Donaire and Top Rank didn't want to fight. It was a good offer, and they could have even thrown us a counteroffer, but they didn't, and that said a lot. He says Donaire is scheduled to fight April 13th against most likely Guillermo Rigondeaux, which incidentally I'd love that fight if it happens. But either way, Nonito Donaire is going to be fighting on HBO April 13th, and we don't know against who yet. But that's who it looks like. So, in other words, Abner Mares said, we were going to be stuck with some mandatory defense against Victor Terrazas, and we didn't want it. There was no money in it, so we decided to move up in weight, and that's exactly what they're going to do. And I quote, Mares says, Terrazas needs me more than I need him. If I fought him and won the fight, everyone would say, who is he? I don't need that fight, nor do I need a mandatory. I paid my dues. There's no better time to move up to featherweight than now. My goal is to become a champion again in that weight class. I agree. I can't really deny it. I can't really blame Abner Mares. He says, although we're moving up in weight, we're not closing the door on a Nonito Donaire fight. He says, I want to say that I'm still open to fighting at 122 pounds to make the fight with Donaire. He says, I know Top Rank said after the fight he's done on April 13th they're willing to negotiate. I hope that's the case. If it is, I'm still willing to do it. Or I could do it at 126. Either way. He's saying, I'm not saying Nonito's afraid of me. He's not. He's a fighter. But sometimes business makes it tough. If Nonito didn't wind up fighting Rigondeaux, we want people to know that I'm willing to fight Rigondeaux too. Hey, man, you got to love Abner Mares. There's no question about that. Hey, I'm going to take a short break. When we come back, we're scheduled to have Marty Mulcahy. If you're in upstate New York and you need a trucking company, then you need Rosselli Enterprises. Rosselli Enterprises is trucking at its finest. They have it all. Dump trucks, dump trailers, walk-in floors, flatbeds, flowboys, tankers, loaders, and a full line of roll-off containers for any job, big or small. Rosselli Enterprises is also the source for all your sand, gravel, and topsoil needs. Visit them on the web at RosselliTrucking.com or call 315-433-5115. That's 315-433-5115 and tell them Billy C sent you.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to FightNow.com.
We've got a great matchup tonight. Fighting out of the left corner is the #1 ranked contender.
No, he is not.
I'm sorry, but who are you?
I am the IBO computer. I am programmed to provide only fair and unbiased boxing rankings. This fighter is the #15 ranked contender.
Fair and unbiased boxing rankings? That's a new concept.
Actually, it is not. The IBO has provided unbiased computerized rankings for many years.
Well, we've still got a great fight tonight, folks. In the left corner is the #15 ranked contender.
The IBO, the champion of integrity. Learn more at IBOBoxing.com.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you. I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
As a young boy, all Billy C dreamed about was one day having his own catchphrase.
And we're back. And we're back.
One boy, one dream, one day, everyone will say.
And we're back. 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 And we're back.
Catchphrase coming soon to a theater near you.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. Glad you could join us. If you don't have Fight Now in your sports channel lineup, you need to call your local television provider and tell them that you want Fight Now right now. It's that simple. Pick up the phone and call. For all the information about the channel, you can find it on their website, www.fightnow.com. Speaking of now, joining us, Marty Mulcahy. What's up, brother?
Good morning. How you doing, champ?
Hopefully a little better than yesterday. Big power outage wiped us out, right during the show, and, all the systems crashed and no backups because, when the power goes out, it didn't have a chance to back up and all this crazy stuff. So, hey.
Another day of live radio,
I was just going to say.
Gotta roll with the punches, huh?
I was just going to say, yeah, just another day in paradise. But anyway, I wanted to ask you a couple of things on some fights last week. Matisse against Mike Dallas Jr. I don't think either one of us thought that Mike Dallas actually was going to win that fight, but I kind of thought he was going to go a little longer than he did, especially the way the fight opened up. Does this show us that he just wasn't ready for this fight, or does it show us that Matisse is that good?
Well, yeah, I mean, you expect more than 30 seconds out of a professional boxer, no matter what level. Yeah, I thought it was always going to end in a knockout, but like you, not this soon. I figured, 5-6 rounds, let him weigh on Mike Dallas a little bit, because Mike Dallas is a good boxer. He knows distance. He has good amateur credentials. He's been in with some other tough guys, but he was just blown out in this fight, never got started, and so, when you have a knockout like this, it's kind of a two-edged sword. First thing, on the record, KO1, people see the highlight, it's just a one-punch knockout. The other edge of the sword is that, is it fluky? Was it just a lucky punch? Looking at Matisse's record, no, it's not. This guy, he's been in with 5 world champions. I thought he beat all 5 world champions. He didn't get the decision against Dab Judah, didn't get the decision against the kid from St. Louis, Devin Alexander. Didn't get that decision. I thought he won that fight. But what he did do, he knocked all 5 champions down. So it shows that he has accuracy and punching power. And you saw both of that against Mike Dallas. And I guess the answer to your overall question is, if you're not a world champion, you're not going to get up from his punches. So Lucas Matisse, I think he's the best junior welterweight in the world right now. If the other argument is Danny Garcia, of course, and I think that this one-round knockout actually got Lucas Matisse a little bit further away for the world championship fight against Danny Garcia, because there's no way Danny Garcia is going to want to meet him voluntarily.
You see, now I don't know about that because of Danny Garcia's, the way he feels about himself being the best. But the one thing I did notice, if you can take something negative out of that fight, which is very hard to do, and the only reason why I'm trying to point it out isn't to be nitpicking. It's just you try to look at a flaw, and obviously every camp looks at a tape, and even Matisse's camp is going to try and find something wrong with that 30-second fight that they're going to work on, and it seems to me that he's become really one-dimensional in those close fights. Yeah, I agree with you. I thought he won both of them as well. And, it takes him traditionally a little long to get going, and then he comes on and he seems to get stronger and stronger. But his strength, obviously, is his knockout punch and his ability to absorb punishment without it seemingly to have an effect on him. And I think Mike Dallas Jr. showed a blueprint of how you could beat him. The problem is Mike Dallas Jr. couldn't keep it up more than 30-something seconds. So, I don't know, man. I think a good boxer maybe, like we saw in those two close fights, I think maybe.
Look, Devon Alexander is a good boxer, and I didn't think he was able to get away from him. I think the most underrated part about Matisse is his feet. I mean, in order to land those vicious punches, you have to get within punching range, and he is really good with those feet. He gets within punching range. He doesn't get in too close where he smothers his punches, and he doesn't get too far away where he leans in with his punches and get off balance. His feet put him in perfect position. And you look at Zab Judah, he's a good mover. He was able to track Zab Judah down. Devon Alexander, same thing, a good mover. He was able to track him down. And then you look at other fights against like Oljugund, where, hey, he proved he can meet you in the middle of the ring and just war it out, battle it out. And that's what he did against Oljugund. So I think we're really seeing Lucas Matisse is a guy who looks cruder than he actually is. He brings every tool to the game, and people forget he's a pretty credentialed amateur. He won a Pan American game, Pan American Games gold. And that's where the best of South and Latin America get together, and in North America, and he was able to win that competition. That's no easy feat. So I think we are actually maybe even underestimating him, because this fight, we're looking for stuff to pick at, because it's almost like in our nature, perfection. There shouldn't be such thing as perfection in boxing, and Lucas Matisse is granted far away from perfection, but when he lands a punch, people were making fun of Danny Garcia. Lucas Matisse knocks out Mike Dallas and breaks Danny Garcia's ribs in the process. It was that kind of a thing. I agree that Danny Garcia wants to fight him. It's never on the fighters. They do not avoid each other. It's the management of the fighters that avoid each other, and they're going to want to get another optional title defense from Danny Garcia. Maybe put Matisse and Garcia on the same card and then match them in like 2 fights down the road, because it could be one of those things where Danny Garcia, if he fights and loses, where does he go from there? He's still talented enough where nobody else is going to want to fight him, because he can still beat him.
No, you're right. Hey, it's not nitpicking, Marty. It's analysis.
Yeah.
That's what we call. Now
they call us critics for a reason, right?
Friday night fights. I went with my boy. I very rarely change, picks at the last minute. But I tell you the truth, your inside scoop on what Gabe said about Zinzurek. I hadn't heard that before, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I remembered the look on his face from the last fight, and when we analyzed that fight, he was no spring chicken. And I went with Vera, and Vera once again with virtually, you can't say that he does anything right, except he lands a punch occasionally, and it usually puts his foe out. I called him. I said he throws punches like lightning. He doesn't know where it's going to land, or it never hits the same spot twice.
Yeah, not as lightning, not as lightning.
Right. No, I don't mean he's as quick as lightning. I meant, like the way lightning.
Yeah, there's the infinite probability. You can't calculate where it's going to land. Like I said, I took Gabe at his word that that the Zinzurek came into training camp late, didn't look good. His legs weren't there. He looked unfocused. And look, Vera improved one thing, and he's proven it against it more than just Zinzurek. If you don't come into that ring 100% prepared, he's going to find those flaws, and he obviously found them against Zinzurek really early. Now, give Zinzurek some credit for getting back in the game after that horrible start, and then actually winning some of those middle rounds and making it close, and then and it was like a perfect bookend performance for Zinzurek. A bad start and a bad finish. In between, looked halfway decent. And Brian Vera, we're looking for flaws in Lucas Matisse. They are real flaws in Brian Vera. But if you're not, committed 100%, and if you're not in shape 100%, you're not going to be able to expose those flaws, because Vera stays on top of you. And a lot of these boxers, they want that room to operate. They want to get in their comfort zone. And Bill does not allow for a comfort zone if you can't create that space with your feet. And Dzimzoruk, his legs are shot. That's all you can say. And also the other thing is, with Dzimzoruk, his Mendoza line is 160 pounds. If he gets down to 154, perhaps, not at his age, but perhaps he can pull off one halfway decent win again. But at 160, he just doesn't have the body for it. That body of his is not built to absorb punishment, and Brian Veal proved that distinctly last Friday night.
I think you hit it on the head. I think his body can't handle a 160-pounder punch, because that's his only flaws was in that weight class. On the undercard, undefeated Tony Luis was beat up by last-minute sub, week notice anyway, Jose Hernandez. And, normally I don't listen too much to Teddy Atlas anymore because he just, he just gets to me sometimes because he's talking about this, about that, about the other thing, and then he complains about the judge's scorecard. It's like, wait a minute, how could you be scoring a card if you're talking about all this other stuff? But I agreed 100% with what he was saying about Tony Luis. Here's a guy that comes in, he's undefeated, and we got to start taking a look at these Canadian fighters who, are fighting what look like good opposition on his record too. But he was being informed incorrectly, and Teddy pointed it out, that this guy, although he was short, was fighting as tall as he could, whereas he should have did the reverse. He should have crouched a little and got smaller. What's your thoughts? Do you think it was just a case that he met a better fighter, or do you think the game plan was wrong?
Yeah, I think he didn't meet a better fighter, but he met a fighter who he wasn't preparing for. And a lot of people forget that boxing involves just as much strategy as other sports like football, basketball, you name the sport. There is strategy involved. These kids don't just go in there and start winging punches. They prepare for certain opponents. And last-minute opponents, they can get you. It's not always, they don't always bring in an easy last-minute opponent. And Jose Hernandez is not an easy last-minute opponent. Yeah, he has a lot of losses on his record, but if you look at those losses, they're against quality opposition. Bourgueil, that's the guy who knocked him out. That's the only guy to knock him out. He's a lightweight contender. Luis Ramos is another guy. And in that Luis Ramos fight, I thought he did enough to win the fight. And he had other fights where he lost by really close margins. So, and he's a guy that even when he's not, getting last-minute fights, he is always in the gym. He's always preparing. And out in California, some of that gym work is better than the actual fights you'll get in places like West Virginia and in Canada, I hate to say, on a certain level. And I believe he already fought 4 times last year, so he's an active kid as well. And he's a guy that, if you like Brian Veal, if you're not prepared for him, for his style, that stay on top of you, brutish, mauling style, once you're in there, and in the second round, your mind starts telling you, man, this guy's tougher than I thought, and you start creating that little doubt, and that doubt snowballs from round to round, and he just could not hold off Hernandez in those late rounds, and you saw a physically stronger guy. I mean, when you looked at him at center ring, Luis just looked like a weight, not a full, almost a full weight class below Hernandez, and it showed when it got to the grueling portions of the round. It just showed that he couldn't, like this injury, just couldn't keep up physically.
One thing I do give at least the current trainers or teams of Canadian fighters, they don't let their fighters suffer. They'll stop the fight. We saw it with David Lemieux. We saw it again last week with Tony Luis. The co-main event in the Demetrius Andrade fight, Ray Serrano against Emmanuel Taylor. A lot of people picked Taylor that with our challenge. I think Ray Serrano may be done. And I hate to say that because he's such a young fighter, but he's not the same fighter. He's just not. I don't care who's training him. It just seems that everybody's going to go for the knockout on this guy, and I'm not so sure he's got a bright future left. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I told you last week that I was picking Emmanuel Taylor to beat Serrano, but not on anything that I saw, because the only thing that I went on reputation a bit and what other people were saying about him, because simply with Taylor, there was, outside of amateur footage, there was not a lot of footage to view on Taylor to see what he was like, but he lived up to the press clippings that I read about him. He's fast. Really, that loss on his record was close. It could have gone either way, and The other thing is he's strong and he finishes the fight strong. And what we saw against with Raymond Serrano in both of his losses is that this might be the running theme of the show, is that he can't endure some of the punishment that these bigger punches will unleash on him. And Serrano is a kid. He's got the amateur pedigree. He's got some decent wins on his record, but he just doesn't have that world-class chin. A bit like, what's a good heavyweight? Everybody knows the heavyweight. Tommy Morrison would be a good comparison. He seems to have the offensive tools in his arsenal, but when he gets in there, when his offensive tools don't get the job done right away, he doesn't have a plan B. And if you don't have a plan B, you're never going to be an A-level boxer. That's the best way to put it.
It's funny. You made me remember an email. I had a listener saying several listeners think I give too much credit to the old guys and not enough to the new guys, and they made a statement, and I kid you not. They said Tommy Morrison would have knocked out Jack Dempsey, no problem. I have to laugh at that. I mean, just crazy. Demetrius,
people also forget, I believe our generation was a little bit better as well, but not just because of look. The athletes are better today. You got to give,
of course,
give the athletes today that, but they don't get in there and fight as much as the other like they did back in the 80s, 60s, and 70s. And a guy from the 50s would have told a guy from the 80s like us that no, his boxers were better because they fought more.
Exactly.
And it comes down to you get better by doing your craft. And these boxers only get in the ring 3-4 times a year. They cannot be as good as the boxers that do it 10 times a year on the elite level when everything else is evaluated properly, I think.
And the other thing, too, is that the criticism I get a lot is, come on, I'm looking at records. I see this guy fighting a 3-20 guy and everything. Listen, I've never said that all the old-time greats were in, great fights every single time out. They used to fight, as like you said, as a job, and they would maybe have 3 or 4 big fights a year, but then have another 20 of mediocre. And I think it puts it in perspective when you see a guy like Nonito Donaire get Fighter of the Year because he was busy 3 times in a year. So whatever. And
you can't replicate live fire and the emotion that crowd brings as well. Remember when these old guys in the 30s and 40s were traveling, they had to hop on a train from New York City and go out to, to Indiana, to Iowa, to Missouri, and get these fights. And they perform in front of 6,000-7,000 people. And now when we say 6,000-7,000 people in a crowd, it's like a packed house. And it does. It brings a little added charge, a little added emotion. And your opponent, you're fighting in his hometown. There's all kinds of little things that make those fighters in that age better. The gloves weren't as good, and the hand wraps were different. It's just so much different stuff.
Demetrius Andrade, we've been wondering about him. I know I've been very critical of them coddling him and everything else, but I never disputed that he possessed the skill. And here's what I saw the other night, last week, Marty. I saw that Andrade is just as good as we think, and I think that I'm looking at some of the weaker opposition as more of preserving him because I see the talent with this kid. I definitely want to see him step it up. I think he did against Hernandez, but I don't think I can criticize his team at this point because I am seeing an improvement with him from what he looked like when he first turned pro, and I'm excited to see him now as he moves on to that championship level.
It's kind of funny. We just got to talk about one good fight a year, and it looks like Demetrius Andrade. He's following a little bit of what we were talking about, the old blueprint. He's still coming up. Let's give him that. But he's having one tough fight a year. I think last year it was Grady Brewer who was, his challenge. Kind of to round out the year and to see how good it is, see how much he improved throughout the year. And now it's Freddie Hernandez, who is a good boxer. He'll give anybody trouble, but he didn't give Demetrius Andrade trouble, and that's a sign of his real talent. The only knock I can give Andrade is I still don't see that passion, that fire, that when you get Freddie Hernandez hurt, that follow-up, instead of just letting him off the hook, like the video game, finish him. That's what we want to see here. We want to see that passion. And he is developing just like Andre Ward did, where before Andre Ward won the title, and you saw the flash, but you didn't see the consistency to stop the opponent. And I'm hoping that Andrade, something clicks mentally, like it clicked with Andre Ward. And when he meets elite-level guys, he steps it up even another notch. And he finds that passion, that power, that maybe when he gets that big fight buzz, when you know you got the whole world watching you, maybe then he turns it up a notch, and we see that killer instinct that, you know, obviously Andre Ward found within himself. But until Andrade gets that, I'm afraid he's going to have good wins, and after the end of the 4 good wins, you're going to look back and say, he's good, but I just don't see. I don't see there's a difference between a world champion and a star. Demetrius Andrade can be a world champion. I'm not sure he's ever going to develop into a star.
You know, it's funny because I agree with you. He had an opportunity to finish. He actually started that one round late, you know, when he had Hernandez in trouble. But I think he gets bored. I think to me it looks like he's bored in there, and maybe that's an indication of the fact that he is so much better than his opposition. Maybe you're right. Maybe as time goes on and his competitors become tougher, maybe we'll see the real Demetrius Andrade.
I hope so, because I went online and just look at the odds. I think the odds were like 15-1 beforehand going in, and give Las Vegas credit for this. Usually they are pretty accurate and they make it hard for you. And everybody knew that Andrade was going to win, but you want to see that if he is all that he's built up to be. I want to see more. I think that's the whole public. And we look at somebody like Chad Dawson, and we're saying we want to see more. And they get the HBO, and then they get a backlash because they make it to HBO, and everybody wants to see the knockout. But there's artistic boxers out there that we're willing to pay for. The Floyd Mayweathers, the Broners, even go back to our age, Pernell Whitaker and stuff like that. If they do it in an entertaining style, if they stay in the pocket and they show the flashes of brilliance, but I don't know. There's just in some boxers you can just see there's something missing. The phrase I always say, there's something not there. And with Andrade, I think something's missing. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but it's just not there.
No, I hear you. I think it's sometimes you look at him and he just doesn't look excited. Maybe that's it. But we got a couple of fights going on tonight and tomorrow that interest me big time. One that's kind of tough for me is actually the Carlos Molina against Corey Spinks fight, which is the main event on Friday Night Fights tonight. I say it's tough because, Carlos Molina, I know everybody remembers, him possibly being robbed and stuff, but this guy isn't known for a power puncher. He's also known for a guy that gets a little lazy in there, and he's fighting a guy that's been there, done that. But then again, in Corey Spinks, I'm not so sure he can still do that anymore. And that's my dilemma. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I like Carlos Molina. They're fighting in Chicago. It's his hometown. He's a pressure fighter, so he's going to stay on top of Spinks, and that's the thing with Spinks. You don't know where his legs are anymore. The knockout that Spinks just suffered at the hand of Bundridge, I think Bundridge might be a guy who just has Corey Spinks' number, where he's always going to look good against him because styles make fights. Bundridge is got power on both hands, and when you look at Carlos Molina, it's the exact opposite. He doesn't have power in either hand. He just stays on top of you, and he wears you down. He frustrates you. He gets you out of your game. And like you said, Spinks is a world-class operator. Can he get Spinks out of his game? And I'm torn here. I'm going to go with Molina to win because, like I said, he's got the hometown edge. Those Chicago referees, judges, have seen him. They're used to him. They're used to his style. And Spinks is a guy who likes to have space. People forget how good Spinks was. This guy unified 3 of the belts. He moved up to middleweight and gave Jermaine Taylor a decent fight, a boring fight, but a decent fight. He's a southpaw. He's tricky. He's been doing this since he was in diapers. But is he shot? Boxing, the odometer is different than the actual age. Has Spinks reached the limits of his boxing odometer? Are his legs out of gas? I tend to think they are, and if they are, a guy like Molina is a perfect guy to bring it out on him because he's going to want to get on the inside, make it ugly, maul on him, push him backwards. And moving backwards, it just takes so much out of your legs, and I don't think Spinks can keep it up. I think he'll last the distance, but by round 7, 8, 9, you're really going to see his punch rate drop, and just like you can see it on the flow chart. You can just see the scale go down and down and down. And I think as his goes down, Molina goes up, and he wins the fight by 3-4 rounds going away, and wins the entire championship round. And I don't think it's going to be really a fun fight to watch, because if Molina had the power, you could really say look for the knockdowns and stuff like that. But I think after the 5th round, you're going to see the same round repeat itself over and over and over, and that's monotony. That's not entertainment.
It's interesting because as I'm breaking down the fight too, I'm looking at Corey Spinks and all of his accomplishments, and it shocks me that K9 actually beat him not once but twice and knocked him out both times, and he went the distance with some other bangers like Jermaine Taylor. So I think you might be right on that one. One of the most
styles make fight. I look at someone like Juanma Lopez is coming back this weekend. Look how bad Orlando Salido looked against Mickey Garcia, and it's one of those things where maybe Juanma Salido's style just got to him. The classic is Ken Norton against Muhammad Ali. Certain guys or Iran Barkley against Thomas Hearns. Thomas Hearns is so much more superior, but he just could not beat Iran Barkley. Those styles, and you're going to come across that every once in a while.
Oh, yeah. There's no question about that. Juanma has other issues, but anyway, the fight that I'm really interested. Well, two other fights I'm really interested in is the heavyweight fight between Mike Molo and Artur. I don't even know. Is it?
Yeah, I know.
What do you drop the Z? You drop the S? I don't know. Let's just call him AS. But I've seen this kid fight live. He comes out in a jail outfit, and
he has been in jail.
Oh yeah, he did some time. And at first, when I saw him live, I thought of him as not being a big guy, and thinking he wasn't going to be around long. But then now, as I'm analyzing him, I think he just looks small. That night I saw him, he might have been fighting a much bigger guy, because he is pretty big, and he's fighting Mike Molo, who hasn't been in the ring for a little bit. And the last time I saw Mike Molo happened to have been a fantastic fight against Andrew Golota. But I'm kind of torn on this fight. I think Artur might be a guy to watch. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, Molo. I always saw. You always saw not the potential, but the spurts, the little. In spurts he looked great. Yeah, the Golota fight, I agree. That was a fantastic fight. That was a back and forth affair. But he hasn't been in the ring for 2 years. I would give Molo much more of a shot if he had been keeping busy, doing something, getting in there against, like I was saying earlier, against that live fire opposition. You don't just. I don't think you can just walk back into the ring after 2 years, unless you're Sugar Ray Leonard, and perform against a talented opponent. And I think Spielska is going to develop into a talent. I still think he has a way to go. This is a guy who is more of a martial arts guy. He came to boxing late, and the way he was discovered was actually in one of those soccer hooligan fights where he was actually seen out on the street, and what he went to jail for 2 years, because he was getting in fights in the street. And he's a guy that, if you could channel that energy, as you could say, he walks out with that jail outfit. He revels in that bad boy image and that bad boy attitude. And I hate to say it, we in America think we got the baddest of bad boys. Hey, go over to the mean streets of Poland and see how our bad boys do against their bad boys. This guy is a tough guy, and I think if he gets the finesse, if he gets the skills, he can turn into a fringe contender, like a top 20, from 20 to 11 to 12 ranking right there. I don't think he's ever going to be a top 10 guy, because for me, you have to really come to boxing, at least in your teenage years, to build that muscle memory, to get those reflexes going, and to kind of absorb the sport. Because, like I said, boxing is easy when it's going your way, but when it's not going your way, that's what I want to see, how you react when it's not working for you, when you have to go to plan B. And Spielska might have to prove it against Mike Molo, and if he does, good for him. He's a southpaw. That's also difficult. But like you were saying, he's not the buffest, the strongest of guys. I think he's kind of built up into a heavyweight, where his body might be a natural cruiserweight, but they want the money of a heavyweight, so they're going after the heavyweight opposition. So everything is leaning towards Spielska, in my opinion, and I think he wins this fight. But I hope he has to go through stretches of difficulty just to see what he really has.
It's funny you say that about only becoming a fringe contender. Without the Klitschko's, when the Klitschko's finally walk away, why couldn't he be a top 10 guy? I mean,
I think there is talent out there. We mentioned it. The British guys are coming up. The Tyson Furies, the other big kid,
David Price.
The Price. There is some talent in there. I think Robert Lenius can develop in that Cuban kid that's fighting out of Ireland, Mike Perez. He's up there. Kubrat Pulev. You have the talent there. It's just that they're just so overshadowed by Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko that they don't. They're the small diamonds around the big diamond. They're the little cluster, and until that big diamond's removed, you're never going to look at the small diamonds in the rough.
You're right, man. You're right. That Pulov I saw live in Denmark, and I'm not impressed with him. He's big. He's not that big. He's thin. But anyway, the fight that I know you got to get going, there's two more fights I got to ask you about. I'm not going to even ask you about Juan Lopez because he's not really in a fight, in my opinion. Antoine Smith. This is a guy I think that you and I are on the same page with him. I love him too, and the thing is that, I just lately, and I say lately, over the last 2 years, I don't know which Antoine Smith is going to show up. And this habit that he developed, which he didn't always have when he basically yells before he punches, is getting worse to me. And I think it's hurting him. Now, he did seem to turn it around in his last fight, and he's facing Luis Castillo, who looked good. And people forget, they're giving him all this credit for that last fight. But he was fading in that fight. He was lucky that there was so much blood and they stopped that fight, because I thought he was fading. He looked indestructible in the first 3 rounds, but after that he was fading. Antoine Smith comes on strong at the end of the fights. How do you see this one going?
Well, this is going to be a fight at like a 150 or a junior middleweight fight, or like we were saying about the Zendrick and some of the other fights here recently. I don't think Jose Luis Castillo's body can hold up, like you were saying, for a long stretch. And I saw the same fight you did. He came out strong against Popopka and then faded late. And Antoine Smith can take the punishment. He's a guy, I was telling you previously when we talked about Smith, he reminds me of a young James Toney, that those old school tricks and that attitude where, he does not have the flash like Demetrius Andrade does, but he has everything else. He has those intangibles, that ring smarts to get. He can fight inside or outside. He really can't do it all. But he mentally, you're right. He runs hot and cold. It's like an on-off switch. I'm not worried about him physically or what he can do in the ring. It's a mental on-off switch. That's the part. I don't know which Antoine Smith is going to show up. And once that gets corrected, I think he is a top 10 talent. And like you said, I have to watch him almost with the mute on because that grunting gets to me. It really is frustrating. And in the Ronald Cruz fight, which is his last win, we've shown that, when the hot Antoine Smith shows up, he can beat almost anybody. But in the previous loss to that against Robert Garcia, when the cold Antoine Smith shows up, it's, he can lose to anybody. He's the African-American version of who we saw last week, Jesus Soto Karass. He's the same guy, only in the African-American version. He has the talent, but there's an on-off switch somewhere on his body that his trainers need to find. That's all I can say. Antoine Smith will win this fight and should win this fight because Castillo he's at his best. He was at lightweight, which is 2 divisions below this, and that was 5-6 years ago. He hasn't scored a good win in 5 years, so. You have to go with Antoine Smith on this all around, and like I said, I hope we see the Antoine Smith that we've seen back when he was scoring 3 upsets in a row on ESPN against who was it? I remember Tyler. No, that's when he lost. Gutierrez was a guy who he beat, and undefeated Mexican coming up, or Gonzalez, that he beat as well. He has all the talent, but it's mentally. And Teddy Atlas says it a lot. Boxing is 75% mental. If these guys just aren't there mentally, there's only so much you can do for a boxer. When he gets inside the ring, you compare him physically. You just hope he's ready mentally.
Yeah, and I know that he had some issues, management or training. I remember that was a part. And he's also pretty young, So he's
25 or something like
that.
So.
Yeah. So and finally, Edward Gutnick and Jürgen Brähmer could be the most competitively matched fight over the weekend. I just don't have the warm fuzzy feeling over for Brähmer as some people seem to do. I know that he had trouble making it to fights and stuff, but I think Gutnick is one of those guys, that Stiglitz type guy, that guy that gets a belt and and become better, like a Brian Vera. Who do you like in this one?
I'm torn this as well because when Brähmer was coming up in his early days, he was a hotshot kid. He was the one that everybody was putting their money on. It wasn't Felix Sturm, it was Brähmer. But then he got in trouble with the law. He can never get mentally focused. He had all the talent in the world, but like we were talking about Antoine Smith, he just never combined it with the ring smarts. It just wasn't there. He coasted, and Gutnick is the exact opposite. You can compare him a lot to Carlos Molina, a guy that stays on top of you, who just works and works and works. And Brähmer's the exact opposite. He lets his talent do the work for him. He didn't put in the work before the fight. And you can hear my voice. I'm torn as well. Brähmer has more talent, and these guys are closer in age than. I think there's only a 4 years age difference where Gutnick is a little bit younger. But Brähmer has been in and out of the ring. He's never been in there consistently. You see the flashes, so he might be a little bit more well-preserved than Gutnick. I'm going to lean towards Gutnick because I think in a fight where Brähmer only shows it in spurts, shows those flashes, I don't think he's going to get the judges on his side. I think that when you go to Europe, the judging is a little bit different. They don't really reward flash. The consistency is what they're looking for. And I think that their judges pay a little bit more attention to, the old work ethic. and in Germany and some of these European, work ethic gets it done for you. And they prefer a guy who comes in and throws the 40 punches, not all hard, but 30 of them land, vice the guy who throws 5 beautifully, perfectly timed punches and they land. So I'm thinking Gutnick. I'm not sure which promoter is promoting this, is Gutnick or Brähmer's, but Gutnick by small decision. You probably have a rematch in this. So it really is tough to call. But in the end, I always come back. I'd rather have the hard worker than the flashy guy, and that's what I'm going back to. And it's a matter of preferences.
I hear you. Juanma Lopez does return against Silvia Santos.
I'm thinking.
No. It's not. I'm not going to even ask your opinion about the fight. It's almost like we know the outcome already. But Juanma Lopez, and you mentioned a little earlier about Orlando Salido, having his number. I think Juanma makes a critical mistake, which he made in both Salido fights, but he's also done it before in the past as well. When he gets hurt, rather than get himself well again, he immediately shifts into aggression mode and starts, trying to duke it out with his opponent. And I think the book has been read on him, and I think it's going to hurt him now for the rest of his career.
Well, yeah, I mean, go back before the Salido fight. He had tough fights against Rogers Matagua, not exactly a superstar. His problem is, I think, he doesn't know where the pocket starts and ends. He stays in the pocket way too long. He doesn't... but he stays in there for the right reasons for a stance because he wants to get his punches off. That's a combination of things. He has that bad combination. He wants to get an extended series of punches off, but he stays in the pocket too long. You have to find, how I was saying Antoine Smith, the on-off switch. He has to find the off. Juanma has to find the off switch on his aggression. Where get out of that pocket. You can't stay in there forever. It's like the NFL quarterbacks have that clock in their mind, 1.8 seconds or whatever. He doesn't have that timer in his head where he said, get out of the pocket, get out. He doesn't have that sense of self-preservation. He's the Puerto Rican version of a kamikaze pilot.
Marty, I know you got to run. One quick thing, and I'll let you go. Quick thoughts on Abner Mares moving up in weight now. They couldn't get the deal done with Nonito Donaire. We only hear the one side that they offered him the $3 million for Donaire, and they turned it down, and blah blah blah. What's your thoughts, real quick, on that whole situation?
I think Abner Mares should stay where he's at right now. what does this need? I know he wants to move up and get the payday, but with that comes dangers. I think he's at his perfect weight right now. And if you look at all of his previous fights, he didn't win those fights, going away. And in a lot of those fights, he had to resort to dirty tactics to win them. So, in a way, I think it's better for the long-term career of Abner Mares that he did not get that fight. It's going to take him 3 fights to make that money that he's going to lose against Donaire, but those will be 3 wins versus 1 bad loss, I think. So, I just don't think that stylistically and size-wise he matched up well against Donaire at all. And I think we're getting a better fight out of this down the road because I think Guillermo Rigondeaux has the style to beat Nonito Donaire, while I do not think that Mares had that style to beat Donaire.
And they said that what's going to most likely happen is that Donaire and, like you said, Rigondeaux, which would be a fight that we kind of all want. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, because I'm rooting for it. I think that is the better fight overall, just stylistically, and also you have the 2 best fighters, 2 best natural. This is their weight class. Donaire and Rigondeaux, that's their natural weight. Look when Alcemo Moreno moved up in weight and challenged Nonito Donaire. It didn't fare well for him, and he's going back down in weight. Omar Narvaez moved up in weight to challenge Nonito Donaire. He's a physically imposing guy with those long arms, and I just don't think that Mares has the power. Would have had the power to get Donito out of his comfort zone.
Quick prediction: who's winning the Super Bowl, man?
I'm going with San Francisco. I don't have a dog in this fight, so I can sit back, relax, enjoy, and I'm just I'm there as much for the commercials as the game.
Me too. I loved it.
I hate to say it.
I love the commercials. They used to be. Remember when the Buds used to have the football games like Bud against Bud Light? They used to do like a couple of plays.
The horses, the Clydesdale, and everything else.
The horses were great. Yeah, no, I love the commercials. But I happen to, I'm a Jets fan, but my second favorite team has always been the 49ers, so I'm kind of pulling for them. And although I like the storyline behind the Ravens, I'm going for the Niners myself.
Yeah, plus I'm an NFC guy. I'm a Redskins fan, so you got to go for your conference a little bit, I suppose.
Come on, man. I'm an AFC guy, but I'm going with the other team. Okay, don't draw the lines between us now, Marty.
They're classier too. Give them that. I think San Francisco is a classier team. No. I like their coach a little bit better.
Yeah. I like Harborough too. Oh, that's right. They're both Harborough.
Yeah.
Marty,
on a Harborough to win, you can't go.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was just gonna say. Well, I'm putting my money on the Harborough team to win. But anyway, hey Marty, thanks for sticking around a little bit longer, and we'll look forward to you next week, my man.
No problem. I like to leave on brilliant insight like that.
You like when the car's running outside and you're getting yelled at to get in it right now, otherwise you're missing your ride?
Yeah, I might have to ride on the roof back in. I don't know if she's going to let me in the front seat.
Okay, brother. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, enjoy, man. Bye.
All right, take care. That's my man, Marty Mulcahy, giving us his thoughts on the fights from last week, some fights from this week, and his Super Bowl prediction. But he also told us about the commercials, which are great. And in case some of you guys are all boxing fans and never venture outside of the squared circle, during the Super Bowl, it's been kind of a thing now going on for a long time where big-time sponsorships that pay a lot of money for the Super Bowl actually launch their commercials for the upcoming season. Listen, just a reminder, we got Fight Now, and they're probably wondering why I haven't taken a break. Fight Now, if you got a break. Here's the thing. I'm not taking any breaks because of the power outage of yesterday, and a lot of people are, have their panties in an uproar because they missed the show. Everybody's jonesing. I get all of the emails. You ruined my day. I couldn't drive to work without listening to the show, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry, man. I live in an area where we lose power when we get ice storms, and we lose power when it snows, and we lose power when it rains, and we lose power when it's windy. You know what? Come to think of it, we lose power a lot around this place. But anyway, there's some boxing news I got to get to real quick. It was announced the other day, which was something we were going to really talk about yesterday. Bam Bam Rios, Mike Alvarado, one of the best fights of 2012. The rematch is coming. We knew it was going to be a rematch. We knew it. And it's scheduled for March 30th. And I, for one, am totally looking forward to it. It's going to be taking place in Las Vegas, and it's going to be on HBO, which is even better. No pay-per-view. Not that I don't think that it could do well with a pay-per-view, but apparently the numbers worked out with HBO getting it on HBO. So it will be on an HBO Championship Fight Night series, and we like it, man. I love this fight. I love the first one. I think the second one's going to be just as good, if not better. Very rarely do you have the rematch being better than the first one, and as brutal as the first one was, I think the second one's going to be better. Because remember, Mike Alvarado, although he handled it pretty well during that fight, or I should say after the fight, he wasn't happy with the stoppage. And he felt that he could have continued. So I don't know, man. I'm psyched about it, and I'm looking forward to it big time. Big time. Hey, I wanted to mention, Alex Thompson had sent me a request to do a heavyweight spotlight, and I forgot to mention it on yesterday's heavyweight spotlight, which you can play back and listen to now. But we're going to do it. We're going to do it on Primo Carnera. I say this because Tony Treem thinks that Primo Carnera is a guy that's underrated. And a lot of people, the story on him is just like he was just a bum. And Tony and I talked about him one time and said, this guy wasn't as bad as people think. And now that we got a request from Alex T, I think we are going to do a heavyweight spotlight on him. So maybe we can get the skinny on Primo Carnera. He's a paisan, Speaking of buddies, which, by the way, paisan, my man Nate Campbell. Now, it's funny. Nate Campbell, I was very critical of when he fought Timothy Bradley. That fight will forever stick in my mind about my peak of criticism with Nathan Campbell. But I got to meet Nate after that in person, and we spent a lot of time together in France when we were doing a Chevelle Halbach fight, one that she got robbed at, incidentally, but nonetheless. And he's a great guy. And by the way, he does the best. And you know what? I should break it out. I should somehow record it, which I do have. I actually have it. He does the best Don King impression you ever want to see. And I have a video of him doing it. We were in the back of a car, and I put the video on him, and he was doing it. And as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to I am going to somehow download that and post it. But he's when I was with him in France a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, he wanted to make a comeback. I helped him get some fights or what have you, or at least talk about some fights, and ultimately some doors opened up for him that he went and did and made out well. He got a couple of upsets, went over to Russia, I know. But here's the thing that I don't understand. He wants to fight at 135. He felt very comfortable at 135, despite being 40 years old. Then he had already fought at 135. He fought at 140. Now he's fighting at 147 next week. He was just brought in as a last-minute sub from the fight card that's going to be coming at us on February 8th. It's a Friday Night Fights. There's actually a title on the line. It's what's on the line is a world ranking by the WBA and the NABA welterweight title. The North American Boxing Association's title is on the line. Kevin Bisner, he's 19-0 with 13 knockouts in the welterweight division, is going to be the guy who's going to be fighting Nate Campbell. Now, Bisner was scheduled to fight John O'Donnell, who also is a very quality fighter. 27 wins, 2 losses with 11 knockouts. But apparently injury, a broken hand last week terminated that possibility of John O'Donnell fighting. So they needed to do something. And what did they end up doing? They got Nate Campbell. Excuse me. Nate Campbell's 36 wins, 9 losses, and a draw. He's 40 years old, and he's coming into going to be the main event on Friday Night Fight. So we'll be looking forward to that one next week. Another thing that I'm going to be looking forward to is Triple G making his not first, not second, not third, not fourth, not fifth, not sixth, but his 7th world title defense. This is great that he's going to be so busy. Now, here's the thing. He has clearly signed a promotional / television / I'm going to be on HBO / agreement. HBO, we wondered why they were so pro Triple G. Well, I guess a long-term contract, something that they haven't done with other fighters that they decided to do with Triple G, and televise all his major fights. Now, he is going to be fighting again. He's coming off his 7th-round knockout of Gabe Rosado, which took place a couple of weeks ago. And now he's going to be fighting again in March 30th in Monte Carlo. I tell you what, I wish I had tickets to that one. I wish. Does anybody want me to go ringside? Fight now. You want to go do that one? Come on, man. Get me to Monte Carlo. But anyway, he's scheduled to fight Yuburo Ishida, and this is the guy that knocked out James Kirtland, and he made this guy has made more money with that upset over James Kirkland than you could have imagined for an obscure fighter that was supposed to be an easy opponent for James Kirkland. He ends up catapulting his own career. His record now is 24 wins, 8 losses, and a couple of draws, with 9 of his wins coming by knockout. He's the sacrificial lamb that's being fed to Triple G on March 30th. Now, I will tell you this. Triple G will be coming back, and he will be fighting on HBO again in June. That's when he's going to be coming back. So we're looking at him to fight in March and then again in June. Now, Golovkin has been talking about fighting any one of these guys, including Daniel Geale. He's mentioned Peter Quinlan. Look, he said Sergio Martinez, even though Martinez probably won't fight him. But he said, listen, I'm not kidding. I will fight any of these guys, and I want to do it sooner than later. So you got to love this guy. You got to. What did I say? He's saying you mean exposed Kirkland. That's what I said, didn't I? Didn't I say he upset Ishida, upset Kirkland? If I said something else, I meant James Kirkland. Who did I say? Coach is saying you mean exposed Kirkland. He upset Kirkland. Oh, he's using a different word. He's saying exposed Kirkland. Yeah, you're right. I guess that was good. Coach Say says Triple G. How about Matthew Macklin? I think Triple G is going to stick with. At least when he fights on HBO, he's going to try to stick with some known guys to beat up. I don't know. But speaking about some known guys, he's been on this show. Actually, both of these guys have been on this show and their promoter several times. Comanche Boy, my man, George Tananapa. He recently signed with Star Boxing, and he's going to be, I believe, making his second fight under the banner, Star Boxing banner. But this one is a major fight for George Tananapa. And as a matter of fact, a lot of George Tananapa's people feel that this is a huge fight, a big test for him. And from what I understand, some are actually nervous about the Delvin Rodriguez fight, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Delvin Rodriguez and Comanche Boy George Tananapa are going to be fighting February 15th at one of my favorite places for fights, and that's the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. George Tananapa is undefeated at 31-0 with a draw. 23 of his wins coming by knockout, but most of those wins are coming against, guys that the Tijuana taxi cab drivers beat up. So this is a huge fight. Delvin Rodriguez is a legitimate fighter. There's no question about it. And he's a legitimate contender. I look at Delvin Rodriguez as a guy with a lot of heart, but he's a lifelong contender. I mean, even with all the millions of belts out there today, I can't see him, really holding on to one for a long time if he should get one. This fight is being contested at a catch weight, apparently, and the catch weight is going to be 157 pounds, which is kind of weird to me because George Tananapa generally fought at 160 or 168. So for him to come down at 157 is kind of strange. And the other thing that I don't like about those catch weights is that now granted, Delvin Rodriguez is a junior middleweight. He's 154, moved up from welter, and he seems to be doing very well at junior middle. But junior middleweight is the max is 154. So they're adding 3 pounds. It's still a middleweight fight. So Delvin Rodriguez is still fighting at middleweight. Why not go to 160? All it's gonna do is gonna make George Tananepa dry out a little more, and he's still gonna hydrate up to by fight night. I would be shocked if he's not 168 pounds. I'd be shocked. Now Delvin, what's he gonna hydrate up to 165? So it's still pretty close, 160. Even if he hydrates up to 163, still gonna be close. I'm not so sure about this fight. I like the fight for Comanche Boy because he does possess power and everything. But Delvin Rodriguez is a slick fighter. And Delvin has shown that he can take a solid punch. There's no question about that. I've always liked Delvin. I think he may have seen some better days. He's starting to, I think, to be honest with you, I think he's starting to slur his speech a little bit and all of that. Right now, and obviously we'll pick these fights. This will clearly be one on our Billy C Challenge. Right now, I'm looking at this fight, a week or so away, 2 weeks away, and I'm looking at it as a pick'em fight. I really am. I don't see an overwhelming favorite, at least in my eyes, yet. So I mean, that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. I've been known to be wrong on an occasion or two. So, hey, Devon Alexander, Kell Brook, we knew this fight was taking place. Known like that fight's not on HBO, though. I'm saying he's going to put that Triple G is going to be put in with known fighters on HBO. And then coaches in the chat room mocking me saying, known like Ashita. Yeah, but I'm not even going to say what he just wrote now because of Comanche Boy's heritage. But the bottom line is this. Yes, I agree with him. But Ashita was on HBO. Wasn't the Kirkland fight HBO? But anyway. Devon Alexander and Kell Brook. We all want to see Kell Brook fight someone of Devon Alexander's caliber. I think Devon Alexander gets a bad rap here in the States. I really do, I was ringside for a couple of his fights, but the one that sticks out the most was the one against, he doesn't even fight anymore. I always forget his name. Anyway, he was a bruiser, and, Devon Alexander knocked him out. And, he says, he never hurt me, he never hit me, or nothing like this. And Juan Urango, it was. And Juan Urango was battering him. Alexander won the fight, no doubt. Uppercuts destroyed Juan Urango. But Urango started coming back and was battering him to the body. And Devon Alexander's whole chest was as red as an apple. And he says, he never hit me once. It's like, come on, man. But I think it's a great test for Kell Brook. And a great prove that I am a good fighter for Alexander. It's taking place on February 23rd in Detroit. The co-main event is actually another world title fight. In this time, we were talking about K9 Bundrich. Well, he's going to be defending his junior middleweight title against Ishii Smith. Now, our very own Coach K has already went on the limb and said he's predicting an upset. He's got a strange feeling that Ishii Smith is going to beat K9. Ishii Smith is a real fighter. There's no question about that. And he's been in some real tough fights. K9 is a one-dimensional fighter. He reminds me of a bigger version of Ricardo Mayorga, minus the beer and the cigars. But the thing is this. K9 is no spring chicken. I think he's 38 or 39. So, and I don't know why Golden Boy, they signed him, and I don't know why Golden Boy is saving him. This should have been clearly a fight with Saul Canelo Alvarez, and I think it hits home a lot of the talk in different boxing circles that Saul Canelo Alvarez is just not ready for a quality fighter, despite having a belt and despite saying he wants to fight Floyd, and trying to fight Floyd rather than K9 means one thing: money. That's it. It doesn't mean that they think he's going to beat Floyd, because I don't think he can. And also, J. Leon Love is taking on 157. That's right. He turned 157 years old. Bronco McCart also on that card. So another good card coming to us in February. So February is shaping up to be a pretty chock full of shows month. Speaking of months and shows and fights, and I'll quit while I'm ahead. Lowell, Massachusetts. Lowell, Massachusetts was a place that I went and saw several fights. My man, I'm losing my mind. My man Richie Capiello used to do shows in Lowell, Mass. Quite often, and I used to go there and watch some great fights. And he always had some nice. I was going to say cheerleaders. Always had some gorgeous ring card girls from Lowell too. But anyway, Joey McCready. Let me rephrase that. Irish Joey McCready, who's actually been on this show. He's going to be headlining the event that's taking place in Lowell, Massachusetts on March 16th. Now, Dickie Eklund, who's I believe, nephew, or I don't think it's his son. I think it's the nephew of Dickie Eklund. And, I'm sorry, Sean Eklund. Dickie Eklund is his uncle. Joey McCready and Sean Eklund are going to be the two showcase fighters. McCready, Irish Joe McCready's got a record of 13 wins, 6 losses, and a couple of draws. He's got 6 knockouts. He's going to be fighting for a vacant USBO light heavyweight title against that so tough TBA. And TBA is a badass, man. So as far as Shawnee Eklund, he's got a record of 11-4 with 2 knockouts. He's going to be in the co-main event, which is going to be an 8-round fight, and he too is fighting Mr. TBA. So TBA is going to be busy that night. So we'll have to wait and see. Some other younger fighters are also going to be on that card. But one fight that sticks out for me, which is the co main event, is bantamweight Tyson Cave. They call him the Prince of Haiti. He's got a record of 19 wins and 2 losses. 5 of his wins coming by knockout. He fights out of Canada in Nova Scotia. He's going to be fighting in the United States for the first time. And it looks like Vicious Vivian Harris is going to also be on that card. He retired, last I heard, and he's going to be fighting in New England for the first time. Vicious Vivian Harris, man. I know this guy is a gym rat. I know he is always in shape and everything else, but he has suffered some terrible knockouts. That one was a freak headbutt knockout, but nonetheless, he's got some miles on him, and I'm concerned for Vivian Harris, to be honest with you. But March 16th, right around, do you see the connection here? Irish Joe McCready, Sean Eklund, Mickey Ward, Dickie Eklund. March 16th, Irish Joe McCready. March 16th, Dickie Eklund. You see the connection? Yeah, St. Paddy's Day, man. Come on. You know how you Irish are. Come on. Listen, we don't have to pull any punches here. You know how you Irish are. Irish, they like to get drunk no matter what it is, but on St. Paddy's Day. Oh, come on now. As a matter of fact, I'm sure there's some Irish people out there right now starting to drink now to get ready for St. Paddy's Day. That's the I get to be drunk and be an idiot pass for the day for anybody that's of Irish descent on St. Paddy's Day. But, hey, most of the time everybody has a good time. I just can't understand why you guys color the beer green. I mean, what's the significance of that? Why put the food coloring, the watercoloring, or whatever you call it, in the beer when to make it green? I don't know. British welterweight title challenger, let me rephrase that. British light welterweight champion Steve Williams, title challenger Steve Williams is going to be challenging Darren Hamilton for his belt. It's taking place on February 23rd, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. Tyson Fury made a statement the other day. He says the Klitschko's are bad for boxing. And, I understand his point because he says they're boring. All they do is jab, jab, jab. And it's funny. That's what we've been saying. So you guys wonder why I like Tyson Fury so much. There's just yet another reason. Ricky Hatton was reported as jumping ship to MMA and fighting under the UFC. It came out on a couple of websites, but I tell you that's not true. Ricky Hatton said it's not going to happen, although he sparred with some UFC fighters, including Paul Sass. He said no, that he likes it. He could see that his style would have been good if he started out, but he's not fighting in the UFC. So those reports are false. Arthur Abraham and Robert Stiglitz are going to be fighting again, and it's going to be taking place on March 23rd. It's a rematch. I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be a good one as far as I'm concerned. The WBA, who had ordered a mandatory title defense for Vladimir Klitschko, who they ultimately had raised to a super champion after they beat David Haye and then gave the title shot to Alexander Povetkin. Well, now they ordered Povetkin to fight Klitschko, but now they stopped that order too, because now they're allowing him to make an optional defense. You know what? I just think that whole super champion is such a joke. Some issues going on with the WBC and Vanis Marcian. He was supposed to fight Ursulandi Lara, but he didn't agree to the bout. He wants to fight at a different date and blah, blah, blah. So WBC says, hey, you're not playing by our rules. See you later. Some rumors about a fight between Emilio Marino and Leo Santa Cruz is in talks right now. They're talking about possibly fighting in the summer or spring. So I'll be looking forward to that one. Kiko Martinez is going to be fighting next week against Carl Frampton. Kiko has went on record as saying he will not see the end of the fight. Mickey Bay is fighting tonight. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit. And finally, one other thing, Willie Nelson. No, not the singer. The fighter. He's fighting again, and he's going to be on Friday Night Fights March 1st, and he's going to be taking on Michael Medina. So a lot of good stuff, man. A lot of good stuff in the works. So who says boxing is dead, right? But anyone, except for me. Coach K says everyone's Irish on St. Paddy's Day, except for me and most of the other Italians. We're not so keen on that, And at least I speak for myself. But anyway, all right, here we go. Billy C Challenge. I'm going to give you my predictions, the breakdowns, and everything else. We've got 8 fights on tap for the Billy C Challenge this week. In case you are wondering about the challenge, I didn't get a chance to update the website, but the winner of January was the same guy who won for the year-end last week, and all of the rest of the challenges, including myself, are getting a little sick of this guy winning all the time. But all kidding aside, congratulations to Blakely Berger, who incidentally dropped me an email yesterday and said that he received his year-end prize package, which was fantastic, in addition to getting a copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game. He got several T-shirts, one from the World Boxing Federation, a couple from, let's see, who else did he get? Off the top of my head, I think KOFantasyBoxing.com T-shirt was in there, and also Fist Things First T-shirt was in there. I know that. A couple of books, Dave Murphy's favorite, Blood in My Coffee, and another read courtesy of PrizeFightingBooks.com. A complete set of boxing cards, collector boxing cards, courtesy of Pugilistica.com. A demo CD, one of our original demo CDs from about 4 or 5 years ago. He got some patches. He got what other stuff did he get in there? A collector's magazine, an old, I think was it a sport? Oh, it might have been boxing magazine, something like that. Anyway, big collection of stuff. Got it all yesterday, so congratulations once again to Blakely Berger for winning the year-end tournament, and that SOB won January's as well. So we'll tell you what he won. I gave him some choices on some prizes this morning, so he'll let us know. So today's challenge, and by the way, if you want to get involved with it, it's very easy. Just email me, Billy, at TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com, and I'll get you involved. Doesn't cost you anything. All you need is 20 fights to become eligible for prizes. You need to pick, these are the 3 major rules, you need to pick every fight that's on the schedule for that week, and you're only allowed to miss 3 fights in one season before the zeros start getting averaged into your average. So you don't want to miss 3 fights, all right? 3 weekends. So we already got a couple of people that have 2 strikes against them early on, so you don't want to do that. How we win, we pick we round off. Now, this was under stipulation because there was some confusion with one particular person who is still crying. There's still a trail of tears all the way to his house. But the bottom line is this: we round off. So and an exact example: 85.6 and 85.7 both get rounded off to 86%. Okay, then you go to the tiebreakers, which is the amount of fights you've picked, and then it goes from there. And then finally, the ultimate tiebreaker is a specific fight that you guys picked around and all that stuff. But it's never gotten to that point, so everybody seems to love it except for one crybaby, and that's it. So the bottom line is he's no longer has any association with this show or the game. And since then, we've picked up at least a half a dozen more people. So apparently, this guy was bothering a lot of people, not only on this show or in this challenge, but even outside the boxing world, which he thinks that he's part of. Here's the picks that we got this week. The first one I'm going to be picking is Jürgen Brähmer against Edward Gutnick. This is a tough fight. This is a tough fight to pick, in my opinion, anyway. I was going back and forth on this one. Jürgen Brähmer is a former world light heavyweight champion. He's got a record of 38 wins, 30 coming by knockout. He does have 2 losses, but he's never been stopped. The computer ranks him at number 22 in the light heavyweight division. He's 34 years old. He's 5'11.5", and he's got 201 rounds as a pro with a 75% knockout ratio. His 2 losses, one came at the hands of Mario Vite back in 2006, a close 12-round decision loss, and which he avenged, by the way, avenged. And then Hugo Garay, he lost a 12-round decision to. But aside from that, he's undefeated. He's fought some good guys on paper, but most of his fights have been in Germany. And this was the guy who kept backing out of fights and everything else. Well, he's stepping in with a real fighter. Not that he's not, but Edward Gutnick is a former world title challenger in the light heavyweight division. Actually, in the super middleweight division. And he's also the current European light heavyweight champion. He's no spring chicken either at 30. I'm not calling him old, but he's 30 years old, where Brähmer's 34. Now, the computer ranks them fairly close together. Gutnick is ranked at number 19. His record, 24 wins, 9 coming by knockout. He has 1 loss, never been stopped, and he's got no draws. He, too, is 5'11" and a half, and he's got about 25 or so rounds less ring experience than Brähmer at 173 with a 36% knockout ratio. He won... his shot at a world title came against Robert Stiglitz back in 2010, and he lost a very close 12-round decision. He, too, fought Carlo Balza, except he beat him with a 12-round decision. He also, that was his, like I said, his only loss was against Robert Stiglitz. He also has a pretty impressive win against V. Yuzulkov, which took place in February of last year. He won a 12-round decision. In his last fight, he fought Tony Averlant and struggled with a 12-round split decision. That was in March of last year. He hasn't fought since then, but Brähmer hasn't fought since April of 2012. So, I think it's a pretty even fight. Who am I picking? I'm picking Edward Gutnick. I just think that Jürgen Brähmer is not the same fighter, and Gutnick has this Euro belt that he values, and I'm going with him. Second fight that I'm picking is Mickey Bay against Robert Rodriguez. Robert Rodriguez has got a record of 7 wins, 2 losses, 3 of his wins coming by knockout. Both of his losses, one was by knockout and one was a close decision. He's ranked in the featherweight division at 154. He's got 33 rounds of pro with a 33% knockout ratio, and he's 22 years old. His last fight, he was knocked out cold by Juan Sandoval, who had a record of 6-10-1. Now, Juan Sandoval just fought this past weekend as well. It was his only knockout loss. You know, his last 3 fights were actually meaningful fights. Even though he lost by knockout to a 6-10 with a draw guy. The other 2 fights, he had a win over Fernando Carcamo, and Carcamo had a 10-3 record. He knocked him out in 3. And he lost a very controversial 8-round majority decision to Andrew Kilimov back in March of last year. Those were the only meaningful fights this kid had. Now, he steps in the ring with Mickey Bay Jr. Now, Mickey Bay Jr. Hasn't fought in almost a year and a half, definitely over a year. He's got 90 rounds as a pro with a 47% knockout ratio. He's 5'9", 69-inch reach. He's got 18 wins, no losses. He does have 1 draw, and 9 of his wins are coming by knockout. His draw came at the hands of Jose Hernandez, and it was a majority 8-round decision. His last 2 fights in 2011 was against Hector Velazquez and Alejandro Rodriguez. I think that his biggest fight of his career and his biggest win, and really the only notable guy that I look at on his resume is his last fight, Hector Velazquez, who was 51 wins, 16 losses, and 3 draws, and he had an 8-round decision. Although he's been off for a year and a half or so, I don't think he's going to have much trouble against Robert Rodriguez. They're bringing in Rodriguez for a reason. I'm picking Mickey Bay in his return. The next fight is Juanma Lopez against Silva Santos. Listen, Silva Santos is ranked 178th in the super bantamweight division. He's 31 years old. He's got a record of 18 wins, 9 coming by knockout, 3 losses. He was stopped 2 of those 3 times. He's got 94 rounds as a pro with a 43% knockout ratio. He did have 1 decent win in his whole career, but it didn't take place way back in 2010. Was when it took place against Jonavan Barreto, who was 6-0 at the time, and he won that fight via a 4-round knockout in Brazil, like all of his other fights were. Since then, listen, aside from that fight, that's the only significant win I can even find on this guy's resume. He steps in with former world super bantamweight and featherweight champion Juanma Lopez. Listen, nobody will tell you that Juanma Lopez is a bum, because he's not. But I do think that he's got some faults, and I think they were exposed by Orlando Salido. Now, since his first loss with Orlando Salido, he did come back and annihilate Mike Oliver, and then lost again to Orlando Salido. Both fights by knockouts. He's got a record of 31 wins, 28 coming by knockout, but both of his losses were at the hands of the same guy, and they were knockout losses. He's still only 29. He's got a 69-inch reach, 5 foot 5.5 inches tall, 147 rounds as a pro, with an 85% knockout ratio. He's ranked number 7 in the world by the computer. And listen, if Juanma Lopez doesn't destroy Silva Santos, then his career is over. So, yeah, I'm picking Juanma. The next fight is kind of a tough one. Former world champion Jose Luis Castillo. He's got a record of 64 wins, 55 coming by knockout. He does have double-digit losses with 11, and he was stopped 7 times in those 11 fights. He's got a draw. He's ranked now at welterweight. And that's number 69. He's 39 years old, 69-inch reach, 5 foot 7.5, 413 rounds as a pro with a 72% knockout ratio. His last fight against Ivan Popapka, listen, his early success in that fight won it for him. Popapka couldn't continue. His corner stopped the fight, but Jose Luis Castillo was clearly running out of gas in that one. His last 3 fights, he fought 2 times in 2011, beat Sammy Ventura, lost to Jorge Paez Jr., and then the one fight he had in 2012 was against Ivan Popapka. He steps in the ring with Antoine Smith. Like Marty, I love this kid, always have. He's only 26 years old. He's ranked number 40 in the junior middleweight division. I believe that he's more of a welterweight, to be honest with you, but I don't even know. I believe this fight is going to be at welterweight. He's got a record of 22 wins, 12 coming by knockout. He's got 4 losses, only stopped the 1 time, and that was due to a headbutt. It was a TKO loss. They ruled it a punch, but it was against Leonardo Tyner, and he was all cut up and everything else. But he's got 4 losses and a draw. He's 5'7", 154 rounds as a pro with a 44% knockout ratio. His last fight against Ronald Cruz was a close fight, but he won. Roberto Garcia, it's not his night. Kermit Sincham, I feel he got lost. And Leonardo Tyner was his only stoppage. When you look at this guy's resume, he's fought some tough opposition. This is a good fight. It's a good matchup, and it's basically a tale of two fighters. Whoever wins this fight is going to be able to move on, and clearly, whoever loses this fight should consider walking away. And I say that about Antoine Smith because even though he's so young, mentally he's got to get it back in gear. Who am I picking? Antoine Smith. I like him. I think Castillo's pressing the envelope a little bit too here. I'm picking Smith. Next fight is probably one of my favorite fights of the weekend, and this is a heavyweight fight between Mike Molo and Artur Spilka. And Mike Molo is a tough guy. There's no question about it. He weighs usually between 221, 228. He's 6'1", heavyweight, 97 rounds as a pro with a 50% knockout ratio. He's got 20 wins, 12 by knockout. He's got 3 losses. He was only stopped 1 time, and that was at the hands of DeVell. Touch of Sleep Williamson was his first loss as a pro. It was actually, in my opinion, the first time he actually stepped up in class as well. He also has 2 good wins against Kevin McBride and Zach Page. And his fight against Andrew Galata, I was ringside for. It was a fantastic fight. It actually could have gone either way. Jamal McCline, he fought and lost to. And in his last fight, which was 2 years ago, he lost to Gary Gomez, who, in my opinion, wasn't much. It was a draw, actually. It wasn't a loss, but he should have got the loss. That's how poor he fought. He steps in with a new young fighter who's 23 years old, who's starting boxing a little late. He's only got 12 fights under his belt, but they're all by win. He hasn't lost one. He's got 9 of those 12 wins by knockout. Artur Spilka, he's ranked number 38 in the heavyweight division. By the way, Mike Molo is not ranked because he hasn't fought in over 2 years. This kid's 23 years old. He's bigger than I thought, although I saw him live against David Williams in Connecticut. I was there for that. He since has stepped up his level of opposition, including his last 2 fights. Gonzalo Omar Basili, 54 wins, 6 losses, was knocked out in 4. And Jamal McCline made him go to distance in a 10-round fight in his very last fight. He's already scheduled to fight February 23rd in Poland against another undefeated guy, Krzysztof Zimanok, who's 13-0 with a draw. I'm picking Spilka in this one. I like this kid. Jose Felix Jr. Against Geraldo Robles. Jr. is 22 wins, no losses, and a draw. 18 of his wins coming by knockout. He's only 20 years old. He's ranked number 57 in the lightweight division. 5'8", 5'8", 74 rounds with a 78% knockout ratio. His only 2 fights against quality opposition was actually his last 2 fights. He fought Meacher Major and Luis Cruz, both winning those. In his 8th pro fight was when he picked up that draw against an experienced fighter, but he's a different fighter now. Now he steps in with Geraldo Robles, who's got a record of 16 wins, 7 by knockout, and 10 losses where he was stopped twice. He's ranked 128th in the super featherweight division. He's 31 years old. He's got 119 rounds as a pro with a 27% knockout ratio. Who's he beat? Nobody. He got his last fight was his best win against his best opponent. That was Roger Gonzalez, who was 27-5. I'm picking Jose Felix Jr. in this one. Frankie Gomez against Leonard Lane, a very good fight. Frankie Pitbull Gomez is undefeated, 14-0 with 11 knockouts. He's 20 years old. He's a welterweight, ranked 120th by the computer. He's 5'8" with a 70-inch reach, 43 rounds as a pro with a 79% knockout ratio. He had 2 tough wins, one against Adrian Granados and one against James Hope. Don't look at James Hope's record and think he's a bum, because he's not. He's a real tough kid. He's just matched very hard. And his biggest win had to be against Manuel Levea when he stopped him in 3 rounds. He steps in the ring with Leonard Lane, who's also another decent fighter. 13 wins, 8 coming by knockout. He's got 2 losses, never been stopped. Ranked 188th in the welterweight division. I'm a little surprised at that. He's 30 years old, 71 rounds as a pro with a 53% knockout ratio. Mike Dallas Jr. Was one of his losses. Both of those fighters were undefeated at the time they fought, and Lane lost an 8-round decision, if you remember. It was on Showtime. And in his last fight, he lost to Joseph Ingle. I think this is going to be a very competitive fight, but I'm picking Frankie Gomez to squeak out a win. Now, in one of the toughest fights for me to pick this weekend, Carlos Molina against Corey Spinks. You know, I love Corey Spinks. I'm good friends with his father, Leon, and Corey is a very respectful guy. He's been on the show. You can go back and listen to the interview if you want. It's under the hot interview section on BillyCBoxing.com. He's a former world welterweight and junior middleweight champ. He's also a world middleweight title challenger. He's got a record of 39 wins, 11 by knockout, 7 losses, stopped 3 times, 2 of those 3 times against the same guy, Cornelius K9 Bundreds. He's 34 years old. The computer ranks him at number 11 in the junior middleweight division. He's got a 71-inch reach, 5'9.5". He's got 335 rounds as a pro. This guy's been fighting world title fights forever. For the last 10 years, he's been in major fights. So, he's a quality fighter. Now, he steps in with Carlos Molina. Carlos Molina is not known for any pop, doesn't have much power, and he does have a solid chin, and he does have some losses. He's got a record of 20 wins, 6 by knockout, 5 losses, never been stopped. He's ranked at number 5 in the junior middleweight division. He's 29 years old. He's got 70-inch reach, 5'9", 191 rounds as a pro with a 22% knockout ratio. His last 2 fights, he lost by a 10-round disqualification over James Kirkland, which most people were outraged about because many, including myself, felt that he was comfortably ahead in that fight. His very last fight was against Damian Freyas. He's only one of his 2 draws was against Orlando Lara. Some people question that fight. His losses kind of came all in a bunch. He had the draw against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Then he lost to Chavez Jr. in the rematch. Both fights were extremely close. He lost to Waylon Willingham, who I know personally, and the guy wasn't very good. And then he lost by a decision to Mike Alvarado. So he had that little stretch where he was struggling a little bit. But then he turned his career around. This fight's in Chicago. He's from Chicago. I agree with Marty Mulcahy's analysis of the fight and why he's picking Carlos Molina. And as much as I want to pick Spinks, in this fight, I, too, am going with Carlos Molina. So my picks in no particular order: Carlos Molina over Corey Spinks, Frankie Gomez over Leonard Lane, Jose Felix Jr. or Felice Jr. against Geraldo Robles, Artur Spilka over Mike Molo in a good one. That's going to be a good one. Antoine Smith against Luis Castillo, Juanma Lopez against Silvio Santos, Mickey Bay against Robert Rodriguez, and Jürgen Brammer over Edward Gutnick. Good luck to everybody that's in the challenge. Well, except for Blakely. We all got to beat him, but anyway.
Wake up. It's time for the It's Too Early for a Trivia Question.
Hey, I'm only kidding about Blakely. All right? Come on, man. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question is being brought to us by Gleason's Gym in Brooklyn, New York. That's right, man. Check them out, www.BillyCBoxing.com. Click one of the Gleason's Gym's banners, or just pick up the phone and call them, 718-797-2872, 718-797-2872. Gleason's Gym, Brooklyn, New York. They also got locations in Manhattan and New Jersey. And just tell them Billy C sent you. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question I'm getting sick of. Somebody's got to get it right. Otherwise, we're going to move it to the back of the pile, get another one, but you're going to hear this one again. Who was the first world champion to manage a world champion? Who was the first world champion to manage a world champion? Henry Haskup was kind enough to supply this question, and he's even more kind to supply the hints. Both fighters are in the International Boxing Hall of Fame as fighters. Both fought out of the same city. Both had 90 fights, but under 100. Both were champions under the welterweight limit of 140 pounds, 147 pounds, and the lighter guy you couldn't lift. Do me a favor, do a search. The small guy you can't lift, and you'll find one side of this, or the man they cannot lift is what you want to search on. And finally, the last hint, where they were both champions around 50 years apart, email me the correct answer, Billy@talkinboxing, TalkinBoxing.com. and you'll be the first one to win the prize.
This day in boxing history.
And finally, this day in boxing history is being brought to us by Campanaro and Tomkovich. Give them a call today, 845-221-4099. 845-221-4099. On this day, February 1st, that's right, another month already, 1946, Marty Servo knocks out Freddie Cochran in the 4th round to win the world welterweight title, and that took place on this day, February 1st, in 1946, in New York City. That concludes the show for today. I got one more thing to say. Make sure you tune in Monday morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. And for everybody watching the Super Bowl, enjoy it. I'm picking the Niners. They're going to win. It's going to be a good game. Exciting Super Bowl. See you all Monday. Ciao, baby.